Alright, I know you must be thinking, Zoe, what the hell is going on? You look like you're in like an FBI interrogation room or something, somewhere underground. Well, clearly, obviously, I'm not in my studio right now, so this is the best that I can do on such short notice. And I say short notice, I mean, honestly, I just want to talk for a second. I've been thinking about a lot of different things lately, and I wanted to get some of that out. So let's talk for a second about SuperStraight. Now, I'm sure that a lot of y'all are familiar with SuperStraight, or you've heard of it by now. And it's essentially a collection of idiots that decided that they were going to troll trans people by creating a sexuality that said that they are only attracted to cis people, or I guess like whatever, born, natal, male, female, whatever. And that they exclude trans people from their sexuality. They're just not sexually attracted to trans people. Now, on the face of it, this is essentially just a little word game that they're playing, because they're trying to say, well, it's a sexuality, and if your sexuality is valid as an LGBT person, then their sexuality must be valid as a super straight person. Now, let's just walk through a little bit of the stupidity of this for a second and just think why would... All right, I want to get, I'm so frustrated about this. All right, I'm going to pretend for a second, because if you are somebody that identifies as super straight, and it's not a troll, you're not being ironic or anything like that, you really believe this, I'm going to try to address this in a way that isn't so incendiary, so maybe you'll actually listen and hear what I have to say before you just dislike my video and leave real quick. And forget the background and all this stuff. Who cares? Just listen to what I'm saying, because I'll be back in my studio soon enough, and then I'll be making regular videos. This is just what I've got to deal with for now, so you have to deal with it too. Alright, so this is basically some of the problems that I see inherently with SuperStraight right away. And that's this. Number one, you cannot control who you are sexually attracted to. You just can't. It's like if you're saying, I'm only attracted to cis people, you are implying that you can always tell a trans person when you see one. And that is clearly not true. Otherwise, we would never have to have the dialogue where y'all are complaining that trans women are not telling you that they're trans before you're sleeping with them. If you could tell trans people all the time, that discourse would be totally out the window. But it's not. Y'all complain about this all the time. Say that trans people ought to have to tell you that they're trans before you go home with them. So clearly, you cannot tell when someone is trans. So if you're at a bar and you're attracted to somebody and you look over and she's hot and you're like, I want to buy her some drinks and talk to her, get to know her a little bit. But if all you care about is scoring for the night and going home with her, and that's all she cares about as well, then there is the chance that she's got a dick. I'm just saying, the only way that you're going to know if someone is trans is if you directly ask them. So that's number one. You cannot control who you're attracted to. You can't say you could say, oh, I can never be attracted to somebody that has brown hair or brown eyes or something. And then all of a sudden you meet someone, start talking to them, and you start digging them, and you're like, you know what? I'll overlook the fact that they have brown hair, brown eyes, whatever else. So that's the first part. Is that, I'm only attracted to cis people. That's not true. You could be attracted to anyone. I mean, you don't know. It just happens. It's just biology. Whoever you're attracted to is just whoever you're attracted to, right? So let's move on to number two. They'll say that if super straight isn't valid, then that means that gays or lesbians, LGBT people, that sexuality, no sexuality is valid. Now, the reason why this is just is brain dead. There's several reasons, all right? So number one, when you're talking about super straight, you are trying to exclude other people from their identity. So you'll say, I'm only attracted to cis women because trans women are not actually women. You're implying that you're only attracted to women, right? So you're invalidating someone else. That's not how sexuality works. Sexuality is, I'm attracted to X, I have an X preference for penises or vaginas, or maybe genders. You're attracted to masculine people or feminine people. And I would argue that if it's the second one, you're attracted to femininity or you're attracted to masculinity. I don't know. That might explain how you might accidentally take a trans woman home because you're at a bar, you look at her, she looks beautiful, she seems feminine enough, and you're talking to her, and that does it for you. That right there demonstrates that your sexuality does not just innately go off and you're like, oh, nope, trans woman, get away from me. Instead, we also find people that believe that they are straight for years, and then all of a sudden they meet the right person, they start having some weird feelings, and they're like, you know what, maybe I should explore my sexuality a little bit. Human sexuality, I found that most people kind of explore this throughout their life. Like in their teens, they might, experiment a little bit. There's a whole joke about people experimenting in college or whatever. This happens. It's not just a meme. People do experiment more when they're in college and they're a little bit more free with their sexuality or whatever. People explore their sexuality. It develops over time. I don't think necessarily that sexuality is completely just a static thing that you're like, oh, I'm this thing and that's it. No, I think if you do some introspection or all of a sudden you become attracted to somebody that you weren't attracted to before, you're like, well, wait a minute. I might actually be okay with dating outside of whatever, a gender preference or a genital preference. Now, as far as the whole well, then gay men might not be valid because what if a trans woman has a penis? Or what if a trans man has a vagina? All right, let's think about this for a second. Remember when I said a genital preference or a gender preference? This is key to this component to this. If you say that you're attracted to femininity, except you are not accepting of trans women, or you're attracted to masculinity, but not trans men, that's the problem. You're once again invalidating the masculinity of those trans men or the femininity of those trans women. That's the problem. Now, if you say it's just a genital preference, then theoretically it's within the realm of possibility that a gay man that only loves dick and there's a trans woman that just so happens to have a penis, maybe he might be okay with exploring that. And vice versa. If you're you only like people with vaginas or you're just attracted sexually to vaginas, and then you find out that, this trans man has a vagina, I mean, if that does it for you, that does it for you. That's, once again, I don't think that's a thing you can control necessarily by saying, I just have a preference not for those people. So that tackles the preference, genital and gender part, right? Let's move on to the third component of this, which is when we say it's bigoted, this is what we're talking about. If you say that you exclude any group of people solely based on their identity as a dating preference, I think a lot of people have a right to kind of look at you sideways and be like, why? It's just think about it. If you had a friend of yours and he was talking about I don't know, an attraction to women, and he's like, oh, I love I love Asian women, and I love black women, and I love Latinas and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like, except I don't like white women. They're just disgusting. You'd be like, what's wrong with white women? Why do you not like white women? Right? That's the following question. Because when you're saying that, especially if this group is disgusting to you, or absolutely no way would I date this group of people, it does stand to reason that you have some kind of unchecked bias there, which is an absolute prejudice, which could be outright bigotry. And if you get so defensive that even the idea that somebody tells you hey, have you thought about this, is enough to set you off in a rage, and you're going to start yelling slurs or whatever else, or blocking people, or say that, oh, they're just being woke, whatever else. No, you just need to have some introspection and think to yourself, why do I feel this way? Because this is something that I found with SuperStraight, just people in general. They are so quick to attack others and say your identity is invalid, your gender is invalid, whatever else. But they're trying to play this shell game. It's a Mott and Bailey, where they're they get to have their gender preferences, they get to have their identity, while also simultaneously saying that other people's identities aren't valid. Then if you question them either way, they're just going to switch their argument and say, oh, well, you must have a problem with gay identity, whatever else. Which, by the way, I'm just saying, it's very curious that they'll immediately say, well, if you say this, then you're saying that gay identity is not valid. When the whole point is you're defending super straight, which has nothing to do with gay people, right? Unless you're talking like, you know, I see the logic you want to follow up the argument, and that's why I'm preemptively striking this. So I hope that kind of deals, like, dismantles a little bit of why this super straight thing is bullshit. The last aspect of this I'll say is kind of going into the history of it a little bit. At first, whenever it popped up, it was like just a couple people sharing it on like TikTok. There's a couple of videos about it. And I was like, this is a dumb viral thing that conservatives are just liking and sharing around because they're just trying to be like, you know, dickheads. And it's clearly like trans hate. As the guy that originally made the video stated in the video that he was tired of being called a transphobe for saying that he would never date a trans woman because he only dates real women. That's what kind of kicked us off, that viral video on TikTok. Now, as we found out later on, of course, it was spread around and popularized on like 8chan or 4chan or whatever the fuck chan out there, where like the worst sociopaths of the internet gather for their like fucking, you know, circle jerks. And they decided that they were going to like peddle this as a real sexuality. It picked up momentum. And then coincidentally, the same like group of people that start trying to spread this as hard as they can also just happen to be very closely associated with neo-Nazis. Hence, if you look up SuperStraight and you look up images, that's why the SuperStraight acronym is the SS. And it's even got the same stylized writing as, you know, the Nazis. And their flag, like the colors of it, all of this, like the whole theme behind it is this idea of like, you know, traditional family values. And when you look on Twitter and you see the profiles of these like super straight shitheads, especially when they respond to you and they have like, they want to harass you, whatever else, go to their profile, go to their like, go to their likes and their tweets and just scroll through their feed. And very often, very closely, like right behind super straight, you're going to find them sharing pro-nationalism stuff, pro-fascistic stuff, anti-LGBT stuff, because for them, and this is like my main criticism, super straight is not a sexual identity that they have. They are trying to use this as a tool to invalidate and attack other people's sexuality and other people's gender identity. That's why super straight is super stupid. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry for the bootleg area. I mean, like, give me a break. I'm doing my best. I'm producing content for you. That way you didn't have to wait another couple weeks before I could finally be back in my studio making my regular content. I mean, what can I say? I am working my ass off out here, and I hope y'all are staying safe during the pandemic. I will talk to you next time. I will see you in the next video.